If your people spend 30 minutes or more building a quote, then you're losing deals. Let me tell you a little personal story. So, a few years ago, there was a pretty bad hailstorm in my town, and it messed up my roof a little bit. And so I had a roofer come out and give me an inspection, and we were going to put it through insurance and all that. But the problem is that every time I would ask to just go ahead and get on the schedule, let's get this done, I would ask, okay, well, exactly how much money do I need to put down? How much is this going to cost? And then a week would go by, 2 weeks would go by, and I would get a text with some random numbers in it. I would avoid it because it didn't make sense to me and it wasn't an official quote. A few more weeks would go by, the salesperson would call me again. They would ask, hey, can we get you on the schedule? I'd be like, great, can you get me a quote? And then the same thing would happen. It happened multiple times that I would ask, how much am I going to have to pay you? I need to see all of it laid out in a quote. I couldn't actually get an official quote for them because what's going on behind the scenes is that the sales rep would love to get me a quote. They would love to get me on the schedule right now. Give me a quote, I'll put money down. But the problem is that they are checking discounts, they're checking spreadsheets, they're checking bundle prices. They're going back and forth with different managers trying to get approval on things. And so by the time it went out, it looked real messy, it was slow, and by the way, my roof has still not been replaced. Most orgs assume that slow quotes are just part of selling complex products or services. The problem is pricing or approvals or rep training, right? But in a lot of cases, the real problem is simpler than that. It usually comes down to one workflow issue that keeps reps bouncing between systems. And once you fix it, quoting gets a lot faster and more accurate. Fix that pesky revenue leakage problem. I'm going to show you what that issue is and what to do instead. Here's what this looks like. A rep opens a deal in HubSpot, but they can't actually finish the quote there. So they pop over to a spreadsheet that they use for pricing, which, by the way, is from 5 years ago, and they have a separate doc in their downloads folder that they're using for bundle details. What's included, what's optional, what's required, what's different from customer A who lives in the UK versus customer B who lives in Texas. Then they message someone. Hey, can I discount this? And then now we're waiting. Maybe for a few minutes, maybe longer, maybe a few days. Then they have to go back and start building the actual quote. At this point, they're not just building the quote, they're double checking everything. Did I use the right price? Did I miss anything in the bundle? Is this discount okay? They slow down because they have to, and even then, mistakes are still going to happen. Product gets left out, price is slightly off, fee is missed. Now the quote's going out, and either the customer catches it or your team does later, much later, when it's too late. It becomes a mess, honestly. None of those steps feels like that big of a deal individually, but add it up all together and you got a pain in the ass. By the time that the rep gets back into the quote, they're rebuilding context. They're checking numbers again. They're trying not to miss anything, and they probably will. That's just life. It adds time. It also creates a lot of risk. Now the quote is slower to send and harder to update. It's more likely to include a pricing mistake or the wrong configuration, which means unhappy customers and unhappy bosses. This isn't just about speed either. Your operations team is going to start double checking every quote because they don't trust what's being sent. Finance can't fully explain why margins are varying from deal to deal. And sales managers get pulled into approvals that should have been handled automatically. The process slows down everywhere, not just at the rep level. So what's the actual problem that's slowing everything down? In most cases, it's because the process is fragmented. Pricing lives in one place, product logic lives somewhere else, and then reps are left to connect the dots on their own, manually, every single time they build a quote. The fix is to bring all of that logic into the quoting workflow itself. Pricing should live inside the system your reps are already using. Bundles should be predefined, which is crazy, I know. Approval rules, pricing guardrails, those should all run automatically instead of depending on memory or side conversations, or again, that horrific downloads folder. When that happens, your people can start in one workflow. Open the deal, build the quote, move it forward without hunting for information or checking 3 other tools in the weather app first. Now compare that to a system that's set up. Let me fix my hair. Now compare that to a system that's set up properly. The rep opens the deal. The correct pricing is already there. They select a bundle instead of building from scratch. The system applies the right price based on the customer, region, or deal. If a discount is too high, it's going to get flagged automatically. If everything's within the rules, the quote moves forward without anyone needing to check it. The rep isn't guessing, they're just following the workflow. So before, you've got a rep spending about 45 minutes, maybe longer, pulling pricing from a spreadsheet, checking bundle details, making sure the quote is right before they send it. And then after all of that, it's a mess and it still missed things. And it's slow. I mean, I could forgive one, but both? So now, after this fix, They're starting from the deal record itself, selecting the right bundle, letting the system apply all of the correct pricing rules, discounting. By the way, it's actually crazy that we're in 2026 now and not every single platform is doing this. So the quote's getting built in minutes, not because anybody's rushing, but just because it's like really easy and the process is doing more of the work. If your reps are still jumping between tools to build quotes, the problem is not just speed. It's control. The faster fix is not asking reps to work harder. It's to make them work smarter. Yeah. You got where I was going with that. It's giving them a quoting process that actually works inside HubSpot, which is where they're spending all their time anyway. This is actually where most teams hit a wall with native quoting tools. They work fine when things are simple, but once pricing, bundles, and approvals get more complex, the system can't keep up. So teams build workarounds, spreadsheets, docs, manual checks. If that sounds like you, first of all, I'm sorry for your loss. Secondly, yeah, it's definitely worth taking a closer look at how your quoting process is set up today. And that's exactly the kind of problem that Quotivity is built to solve inside HubSpot. So check out our CPQ.